little bit, but don't worry. I just got to remember my password. We'll get it back. But I'm on LinkedIn right now and Instagram. Let me just
Live,
go
live.
Instagram's like low key catching up to LinkedIn as far as importance for our industry.
Interesting.
LinkedIn's, I mean, it's still number 2 by a wide margin, but
What's number one?
LinkedIn.
So
LinkedIn's number
okay,
one by a
gotcha.
wide margin. Yeah. Um, but yeah, nice to do this again. I mean, we're trying to grow PatientAce with like organically. We're not these venture
Yeah.
capital for recruitment companies with VC money that just spends on random stuff. We just bootstrap. Like it's Ronick, and then me and Chris joined him, and we thought we can move the needle a little, and little by little we're doing it one site at a time, one sponsor at a time. Which Robert Goldman, he is the first sponsor to give us a try, and hopefully not the last.
That's
Because
right.
hopefully we get more. I mean, I've been talking to a few people at Ronick at SOS, and there's interest. There's definitely interest. But we've got Robert Goldman here, affectionately known as the sponsor monster. I don't know why. I mean, you're not
I
you.
don't know
Your
either.
posts
I'm a
are
really nice
very
person.
yeah. Your posts show a lot of humility when you actually become a study participant.
Thank
And
you.
listen, guys, for all the perception that Robert's like this hard nosed like bully, like he unfairly gets portrayed as, he look at his LinkedIn post. He joins studies as a patient. He documents that. But then, also really cool, what he did with Patient Ace, he's the sponsor, but instead of giving the sites more work, he called the study participants to get them pre screened. Like he manned the Patient Ace, the dashboard.
Yep.
And, well, we're here to talk to him about his experiences. And then Ronik Anatra is the genius behind Patient Ace, and we got so many features, man. People are not ready for what this can actually do. We're just getting them used to it. Like when you're learning swimming, you don't go straight to like great white shark. You go tadpole, then you go like frog. You like move up, maybe flying fish at some point in between. But you will eventually get to great white shark. But Robert, I think he did great white shark levels with this thing, and so we're here to do another live stream. So, Robert, Ronick, double R's, take it away.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you so much, Robert, for joining us. Thanks, Dan, for
of
the
course.
awesome intro. Robert, you've been with a lot of sponsors in your career. I guess before we get into it, can you do like a 1 to 2 minute introduction of your role, what you do with how do you work with sponsors, et cetera, just to
Yeah.
kind of set the scene?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of Dan's audience knows who I am, but for those that don't, yeah, I've been in this industry over 16 years. I have a medical background, and I spent well over a decade at the CROs. Started my career at the site level actually
Mm.
as a CRC, and I've
Oh, you've
held
been a
pretty
CRC.
much.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I sure, yeah, I was long time ago, 2008-ish. But yeah, so yeah, look, my lane is clinical operations. I serve as the global head of clinical operations currently for my company. And, like I said, I've been on the CRO side. Now I'm on the sponsor side for the past 5 years. And, I'm charged with developing and leading assets at various stages of development, all the way from preclinical to clinical stage assets to, NDA
Mm.
ready assets. So, there's a ton of recruiting is a very, 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 very crowded space.
Yep.
And, of course, look, I chose to work with Patient Ace for various reasons. Um, obviously knowing Dan and Dan introducing me to you, Ronick, and then you and I, Ronick, obviously fostered a really great relationship. I don't want to get too far away from what your question was, but
Sure.
my lane is solely I'm a clinical operationalist. That's what I do. I write protocols, I execute protocols, I deliver the program,
Mm.
at the best of my ability. And so if you do check out my most recent LinkedIn post, it's going pretty crazy. It's already at over 80,000 impressions. It has 865 reactions, 100 and something
Wow.
comments. But yeah, I admitted to the LinkedIn community and to our entire research community that I have now become a victim of my own protocol ideas. Really. I fell victim to it. And
Mhm.
what seems great on Microsoft Word as we sit in a boardroom and think of
Yeah, I
what,
saw that post.
yeah, that's real. I mean, that's not like Chat GPT, like some
Right.
people, that's fine if you think that. It doesn't bother me. Um, but no, that's real life, and so really easing that burden and putting yourself in that shoe is really important to understand. So now that I'm on the other side of the table in this experience, it's not only eye-opening, but it also helps me think again.
Mhm.
I really need to rethink it again. And not because ICH GCP E6R3 tells me to, not because DEI tells me to, not because the community says I should, but really living that experience is what's driving all this. But to answer your question, that's a little bit about me, and I'll kind of pause there
Sure.
for a moment, Ronick.
No, that's good. Thanks for sharing that. That provides some color. Um, what role has kind of recruitment played in your career, and is that I'm assuming that's a big part of what you do in addition to the protocols.
Oh
Can you
yeah.
talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, recruitment's the elephant in the room. It always has, and it probably always will be. And to me, it's kind of funny how everybody always, thinks about, oh, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and we've got all these different novel tricks and ideas up their sleeves. And honestly, like it's not as complicated as people make it out to be. And
Hmm.
I think that, and I'm going to get to like why I think Patient A solves that problem. Um, but yeah, I mean, I drive the recruitment strategy, the enrollment strategies, and during the feasibility, is this a study that's really going to be organically driven based off of sites databases, or is it going to need supplementation? Is it going to need additional dollars in the budget to give sites that can run their own campaigns like with PatientAce or other vendors in the space? And understanding like, okay, no, we're going to exhaust your resources first, then we're going to launch a central campaign, or we launch a central campaign from the initiation of the
Hmm.
first site, we keep that going, or there's so many different ways to cut
Sure.
this. But I'm kind of with the philosophy where I like to measure as many times as possible and cut once.
Hmm.
um, but it doesn't always work out that way, So with recruitment and enrollment, it's literally the most important topic for the delivery of any study, but not just hitting the number. It's also the retention of those
Yeah,
participants, right?
that's that's
And
overlooked a lot.
it is overlooked, and the quality of those leads that are coming in, whether it's organically done at a site level or it's done via your help, Ronick, via pre-screening and conversations that sites are having with these participants. And some sites choose to implement locally IRB approved consents that participants can come in and sign, and then you can kind
Sure.
of do a pre-screening. So, screen failure rates and inclusion and exclusion and all these kind of things. I mean, yeah, it's arguably it is the most important part of the
Mhm.
success of a trial, right?
Sure.
Now, there's a lot of other variables that are inputs to the variability on the success, the quality, the retention, and all of that, right? So site happiness, participant happiness, and of course, if we all play together nice in the sandbox, things work out great. But clinical operations is very, very chaotic, as you know. And so I think there's a lot of room around reducing that chaos, controlling that chaos, if
Mhm.
we have to call it chaos. And Patient Ace is a great way to do that. At least I found it to be that way. And to Dan's point, yes, I did. I wanted to experience what somebody would do, and I'm here. That is literally a full-time job. It is a full-time job talking to participants, and I
Yep.
literally understand why. And it's like one or the other. Sites have to choose. It's not, you're not going to have your cake and eat it too. You're not going to lean on your database and start through A and B today, and then next week we're going to do C and D, and then the following week we're going to do E and F, and address the leads that are coming in via central campaign, whether it's PatientAce or not.
Mm.
that is such a heavy lift. I can't even begin to. I experienced it, and so I wanted to do that to understand really the nuances of And Dan's like, oh, wait till you see how many patients you get scheduled that don't show up. Well, Ronick, I mean, we had maybe one, and it was because of a car issue.
Yeah.
But anyways, I don't want to blabber
Yeah,
too
and
long, but
before and before we get kind of into the weeds about Patient Ace, my intention here is not really to, like, toot our horn or anything. Uh, we want to kind of get the perspective from the sponsor side, because we've worked with a lot of sites, we've worked with some site networks, but it's always interesting. The service and the end result is the same, whether you're a site or a sponsor. Is that you want your patients to enroll in your studies. Obviously there's some nuances, but I'm curious as to with you've had experiences with a lot of central campaigns, I'm sure. What if you can talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, with what are some annoyances, what are things that are done well, what are things that are not done well, with with your past experiences, and we'll start there. uh, and I'm just curious because, like you said, you don't know until you kind of get into the weeds, and when you actually go through it, and I love to get your perspective.
yeah. Well, I mean, look, Ronick, from a sponsor perspective, it's always about the costing.
Okay.
Like let's just, like that's really
Sure.
what it comes down to, and what our abilities are to invest in that. Now you get what you pay for
Yep.
also, right? So, but there's a lot of, I think, the structure in which recruitment companies are compensated
Hmm.
is, in my opinion, maybe a broken philosophy and a system.
Hmm.
Because, well, I mean, look, historically, there was a lot of companies out there, and I'm talking, 10 years ago, where they would put, like, hey, we only get paid for randomized patients,
Sure.
right? And that's cool. But then they were like, obviously quickly realized, wow, with the rise of social media and the
Hmm.
click spend and the ad spend, they were losing a lot of money. Then they
Yeah.
started moving to this paradigm of, well, we're gonna, every person that successfully completes the pre-screener, we're gonna charge you X.
Hmm.
Then if they actually schedule and show up and sign a consent, we're gonna charge you Y. And then if they randomize, we're gonna get a bonus and charge you Z.
Okay.
And like, these are things that don't work well, in my
Mm.
opinion.
For
I think
sponsors.
for sponsors, correct, exactly. They don't work well for us because we're always about being risk averse, and how do
Hmm.
we de-risk working and choosing a certain vendor. So to answer your question, like what's working good, what's not working good, I think if you look at the costing models in the industry within the recruitment space, there's very few organizations that are flexible around how their
Hmm.
models are implemented. And it cuts even further. I mean, when you start to talk about collaborative ad design and what those graphics look like, and what the pre-screening questionnaires are, and what's the fine line between too many questions and not enough questions, and how detailed should those questions be, and
Sure.
what type of lead is it, and how do we qualify those leads. And I mean, there's people on there just that are filling things out, not to
Yeah.
say they are, but like just to be annoying. And they know that, no, really, and we've had crazy, things happen. So when I say like what works and what doesn't work, I think it's the idea of being fair,
Right.
and
Yeah.
understanding that, sponsors, at least smaller ones and mid-sized ones, we aren't, uh, you know, I'll reserve my phrase that I
I
use
think
at SOS. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think on the same note, I think we can all agree, all three of us here, and probably anyone watching with common sense, more the more entrants in this space doing the same job kind of forces everyone to be efficient and drive costs down. Like ultimately a deflationary business. I posed as a CRO about 10 years ago, maybe it was like 9 years ago now, with a major recruitment vendor. They didn't even work with sites.
Mm.
And they took my call because I was a CRO and I had a RFP. I had to like get a quote,
Sure.
and it was an Alzheimer's study. They said, "Oh yeah, $10,000 per screen failure, and if they randomize, it's $20,000." And then I'm a site owner. I know what budgets are for the site. Like, we don't get 10 grand a screen failure. We're the ones
Yeah.
doing the actual work. We're lucky we get 20 grand by like visit 8 maybe on a good paying study. But I'm glad to see that price has been going down and down, and it's because of not just companies like ours, but everyone else keeping the industry honest, which I think is a good thing, even though it affects our margins at the end of the
Sure.
day. But we're kind of being the change we wanted to see in the world. Definitely,
Mm.
Ronick.
Yeah, I mean, guys, I remember, I don't know, maybe it was like right before I left the CRO world, I was working on a endometriosis study, and I'll leave it at that. And I really think like the average cost per randomized patient at the end of the day, as a matter of fact, the CEO of that company we were working with was saying, and this is not oncology, by the way, right? Was somewhere in the neighborhood between 15 and $18,000 per centrally recruited.
Mm.
It's insane, guys. That's insane. And now when you're talking oncology, the numbers can be north of 50 grand for just to get this patient like recruit enrolled.
Right.
And then, by the way, what if they leave?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, that's your fault. So yeah, Dan, you're spot on. So Ronak,
But that's
to
free
get to
market
the
dynamics because the companies figure out, look how much they're paying over here. We can do better. And then they do it. And then they do better. And then another company comes in. So that slowly brings prices down because now you're getting closer to like the true cost of what it actually is and not all this
yeah,
inflated BS.
yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, that's a good point, and there's so many ways to skin a cat in terms of how vendors can charge, and to your point, we try to be flexible and work with sponsors on making a win-win situation. But putting costs aside and kind of going a little bit deeper, uh, is that like the primary is that the primary differentiator you would say?
No,
Like, is it? I guess my question is like, of let's say if you work with 10 vendors, how would you rate their effectiveness, percentage wise, and say, okay, well, X percentage were great, X percentage were okay, and X percentage just didn't work out. I'm curious as to, beyond cost, just effectiveness, which is, the
yeah.
first thing really. If it's not effective, then nothing else really matters.
I mean, that you're spot on, right? So the quality of the output, in this case, the leads that are being
Right.
generated, but also, Ronak, I'd like to address like the portals, you know,
Sure.
the various portals that various vendors offer, and some are very difficult to navigate,
Hmm.
some are very intuitive to navigate. Some have features you're like, why don't all the portals have this feature, right? Like being
Hmm.
able to text message a participant within that portal, being able to email that participant, and even call that participant from the portal are things that just are not very common.
Mm.
And we haven't even gotten into that, but I'm just saying, so the you're right, like effectiveness is measured to me by the quality of participants that show up,
Sure.
and that's a function of the pre-screening efforts, not only on the vendor side, the sponsor collaboration with that vendor, but also the site effort, right?
Sure.
Like what additional questions are being asked to ensure that this participant has the best chance at succeeding and not screen failing. Because I bet if we asked Dan, hey Dan, do you enjoy screen failing patients? He would tell you, no, it's an uber waste of my time and I lose a ton of money when I could be enrolling patients. That's where, and again, I'm not talking from like, just a capitalist perspective. I'm talking from an altruistic perspective as well. Like the reason why we're doing research, right? But at the end of the day, Dan is running
Right.
a business, and it's okay to say that we're running a business. And so I'm just saying I would be willing to bet his preference is not let's screen fail a bunch of patients.
Sure.
That's not a good model, Frank. And by the way, frankly, it's not a good thing for a sponsor either,
Yeah.
right? So effectiveness, to your point, Ronick, is mission critical in the sense of what kind of people are we bringing in, and what did we do to ensure they have the best chance at enrolling? And to boot, like also the site experience. If I'm going to offer a central campaign for sites to opt
Mm,
into, they need to be able to, like, it can't be so burdensome to them
right.
that they're like, gosh, this is like, I can't, all I can do is like, I'm getting emails and texts
So
and
can I ask you, Robert, was this, can you tell the DNA of Patient Ace was site first? And like, is it obvious in the
it's
what?
beyond obvious. It's beyond obvious because the DNA of Patient Ace is a site first, at least in my perspective, because the functionality of what you can do with the platform and the intuitiveness, like once you're shown how to do this, it's not, it's very, very intuitive. And the automation behind what you can do behind each function within the Patient Ace portal. For example, all I have to do is slide a participant to another column and boom, they're emailed the consent. Like I don't have to push any buttons. I literally just boop, slide it over, and all these maneuvers are made in the background. That's just one small example. That, by the way, as a site, that makes my life a whole lot easier. I'm not
Mm,
composing an email. I'm not entering the subject line. I'm not doing an attachment and hey, dear so and so, attach it. It's already done. It's done. I'm literally just sliding it over. It takes me a matter of a second. At the site level, that second
yeah. Oh,
matters,
yeah.
right? Every moment matters. So, and then furthermore, Dan, right? Having a centralized place for sites to communicate with participants for that site, and having it all in one place, right? I don't have to use my personal phone. I don't have to use the business phone. I don't have to use the clinic phone. And it's kind of like this. As a participant, I can imagine why working with that type of dynamic would make somebody feel more comfortable than
Mm.
other platforms that I've experienced.
Interesting. And I'm almost trying to hold you back from talking about Patient Ace because again,
Well, I'm not. Well, and
it,
that's the problem. Like well, I'm not saying that. I mean, I didn't say
but
that.
no,
Was I mean, you're
that's
right.
okay.
I
Yeah,
was. Here's the fun part about that, right? So yes, I was describing Patient Ace, but I didn't say I was,
yeah, okay, gotcha.
right?
So it's about the intuitiveness of the platform,
Yep.
site burden, like how easy or how hard is it, for people to use, are they having to go through a 3-hour training and certification before they can use it? And just another sort of, yet another thing on a site to-do list, or is it kind of like, okay, here it is out of the box, you can use it. And then you mentioned, let's see, what else?
Hey Janelle, it's patientace.com/demo to get a demo, but Ronick
Oh
and I
yeah.
will be in the DMs if you're interested. Thank you for watching.
And then you mentioned, earlier, you mentioned kind of the collaboration between the sponsor and like in setting up the campaign and getting those pre-screening questions kind of up and running. Obviously those are things that we do, but I'm curious as to your experience pre-Patient Ace. If you had to kind of um, categorize like your experience and quantity of leads, quality of leads, all everything, and if you have to say like, okay, great experience, okay experience, and terrible experience, also keeping in mind like, did it actually, was it a successful campaign? Um, what percentage of the vendors fall in each of those buckets that you've worked with beforehand, I guess?
Yeah. So I would say 80% of them fall in the bucket of insanely uberly disappointed.
Really? 80%?
Yes. Yeah. 80%. Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
They show you the top of the funnel, the
Mm,
bottom of the funnel. They use a lot of metrics to tell you how they arrived at these numbers. And generally, and again, this is my experience.
sure,
I'm not
sure.
saying I'm
Yeah.
not saying this is the norm, but in my experience, um, if I get half of what they say we're going to end up with,
Mm,
they try to boast that this was a successful campaign. That to me is not successful
Mm.
because because obviously if I'm expecting, let's say, 70 randomized participants from this campaign,
Yeah.
and they only deliver 40,
Hmm.
and the cost of that campaign is still static, hasn't moved. The cost per patient now is almost 2x.
Mm.
So when I'm telling, like, so yes, Ronick, like in my experience, most of the vendors will give you all of the metrics, and some will even go as far as to do some testing campaigns on their own dime.
Yeah.
And they'll show you, like, here are the click-through rates, here are the impressions, here are this, here's that. We ran it for this amount of time. Generally speaking, in my experience, yes, 80% of the vendors do not actually produce
Hmm.
what they say they will, and more importantly, in the timeline in which
Okay.
they say they will. So I don't know what that's a function of. Is it a result of the ad not being like people are just scrolling past it? Is it not resonating? Is it not resonating? Is it not hitting? Is it not the right color? There's a lot that goes
Yeah.
into
Oh
the
yeah.
marketing. Like, certain colors resonate more with certain areas and shapes and time of day and geographic location, and there's all these different that I'm not an expert in. And so what works, Ronak, another thing here with my experience is, when I select a vendor, I want my vendor to be the expert in the room. I'm
Mm.
not supposed to be the recruitment enrollment expert. Do I have
Sure.
enough information and do I have enough experience to know enough? Yes. But I need the vendor to take the lead. So when I'm going through the designing and collaborative process of pre-screening questionnaires, IRB approvals, the creative, the ads, the whole workflow of what it's going to be, whether I'm choosing ancillary services or not. You know, Generally, again, Ronick, it's most of the time a disappointment. And
Mm.
so when I say, like, what is good, great, and okay or poor, most of the time in the recruitment
Mm.
space, I have a really bad experience. That's
Wow.
me.
That is
Maybe other
that's actually
people,
surprising. I wasn't
yeah.
expecting that high of a number, but
And not to interrupt you, I'm also including the fact that I don't care about the number of leads that are coming through, and I don't,
right.
quite frankly, care about the number of consents that are being signed. By the way,
Mm.
which companies, and I experience that they do charge for that, which is fine. I get it. You
Sure.
can't, but on the other hand, that's where we talk about effectiveness and quality of the lead.
Mm.
I'm more interested with, great, you got these numbers, and great, these patients are enrolling, and great, they're staying.
Mm.
That's what matters to me as a sponsor. And again, I don't see how that interest is any different at the site level. I would imagine it's the same thing
Yeah.
at the site level.
Makes sense. All right. So 80% poor experience, and then the 20%. I guess A and B. Of the 20% remaining, what percentage have you been like? Oh yeah, this is great.
Honestly, I've worked with two companies, maybe actually three companies, I would say,
Okay.
that would comprise my 20% metric of, wow, they did great. And
Okay.
they were, again, and the reasons for that are things I've already mentioned, right?
Sure.
Flexibility, skin in the game.
Mm.
If we do good, you do good.
Right.
And then of course having debt, like just that extra mile of support, right?
Sure.
Not just for the sponsor, but for the sites, right? If a site is having an issue with the portal, like, what does that support system look like?
Mm.
And then of course, let's not forget the participant, right? That to me, the participant's experience in interfacing with the time in which I fill out this weird ad or this weird questionnaire, what happens? Like, I
Right.
hit submit. I mean, the good companies that I've dealt with, they're literally following up with this participant within 30 minutes to an hour, right?
And when you say
That,
follow up, what do you mean? A phone call, text message?
whatever,
Right.
email, phone call, text, there's some sort of touch point.
Yeah.
So imagine, like, I'm placing myself in this site, in this participant
Sure.
mantra right now, right? So, like, I'm on Facebook and I see this ad, and I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. And I click on it and I fill out my information. Ronick, there's like many times you don't even hear anything,
Yeah.
or if
It
you do
goes
hear
into
something,
the
it goes into
abyss.
the ether. It goes into,
Yeah.
it's like, where did it go? And so I'm saying, like, the companies that I've had good success with,
Mm.
to answer your question, are that's one aspect of time. So the time from the lead that it was generated to who's it going to? Is it
Right.
going to a central call center? Is it getting fed to the site? If it's getting fed to the site, that's maybe not the greatest idea, because why? Sites are busy.
Yeah.
They're really busy.
Mm,
So the companies I've worked with, they've had plans for that. They've had
sure.
alternative strategies to circumvent. Don't worry, we don't want to put this burden on the sites, but at the same time, you can't abdicate. Like the site has to participate. It's
Right.
not
Right.
going to happen without them. But at the same time, what can we do? When I say we, I mean sponsor vendor,
Mm,
to ease that burden so that we are putting qualified, really high likelihood leads in their laps, as opposed to, hey, here's a bunch of leads, good luck.
sure. Sure. Yeah. I mean, and that's a big deal because it's not just, okay, well, we did our work, but there's a whole life cycle of that lead from, interest to enrollment, and there's so many steps in between. So, um, all right. So getting now, I guess, kind of getting more into your experience. You heard about us from Dan. Um, before we actually started working together, or before we actually launched our proof of concept together. Um, what were your expectations? Like, what were you thinking? Like, uh, uh, what was your mindset at that time? I'm curious to know.
Let's say I had a healthy dose of skepticism, you know.
Yeah.
But really, it was, it was like set up timelines, like
Right.
how much involvement am I going to have to be involved in doing this? Because again, somebody in my shoes who's like the head of ClinOps, we're being pulled in many different directions and have many different obligations. And when a vendor needs a lot of your attention,
Sure.
like that's not a good thing. And so, I expected that that wouldn't be the case
Hmm.
here, and it wasn't.
Okay.
Also, just the time in which the deliverables were sent to us, right?
Mm,
So how quickly are we, how many rounds of review are we going with the pre-screening, and how much time are you spending with us to get an efficient amount of information
sure.
that you can do your art? Like,
Yep.
you know what I'm saying? So I was expecting that to not be laborious and heavy on my end,
Okay.
and it wasn't. Other expectations were, I was a little worried about, okay, well, what is the how intensive is the setup of this portal, right?
Sure.
How long is it going to take me to learn it?
Mm,
Um, and by the way, how long is it going to take sites to learn it?
yeah.
And you know, um, and also, I was, just to be very clear, like I was a little bit skeptical around, like, is this really going to work?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's a
Sure.
natural reaction. And I mean, Ronak, the story that we have, which we haven't made public just yet, is, I think, remarkable. But I mean, as somebody in my shoes, these are, I don't think I think anybody would ask these
Right.
questions or have
Right.
these types of concerns. But those are my expectations. So like when I'm working with that vendor, it's like I want to know startup timelines, my involvement, costing,
Sure.
effectiveness, and then I need metrics to back that up. Like, where are
Right.
your successes? And by the way, if there's something that's going to be a problem, you should tell me about it.
Yeah.
Hey, this criteria is going to be a hurdle. Like,
Mm,
are you aware of this? Not just tell me, like, oh yeah, well, it turns out many people are getting screened out because of this. Well, we knew that from the beginning. Why didn't we discuss it?
mm,
How do we collectively discuss and collaborate so that we can avoid these issues? Not
sure.
just, and then by the way, I'm $200,000 deep in paying for screeners that have been, completed, and I have no patients enrolled or
Mm.
screened for that matter. I
Yeah.
know that might have been a weird answer to the question, but
No,
very
no,
honest.
it's I mean it's good because like in my experience, like we have turned, we've turned business away when we try to be honest, and transparent, say, look, this is not for us. I don't think we're a good fit. And we try to say, look, this is going to be a challenge. I think we can overcome this, and this, and this is how we recommend going around it. And if I remember correctly, I think we had a couple of things that we kind of went back and forth on, in terms of, like, expected challenges, right, for enrollment based on protocol and things like that.
Yep.
All right,
We got
great.
a shout out to Raul. Great information. I appreciate this topic. It's one of my favorite aspects of this industry. In my opinion, the starting point of the action is recruiting. I personally enjoy Patient Ace. It has been the most efficient platform and format to pre-screen quality candidates so far, and the great support they provide in each campaign truly excellent. Shout out to
Thank
Alexis
you, thank you,
and then Raul
Raul.
Gonzalez.
People are gonna think we're like paying people to say these things, but
Yeah, Raul, I'll
this
zell
is
you. My bad. I forgot to zell you.
Yeah.
this is
And you both have not zelled me yet. I've been waiting for it to come through here.
yeah,
Oh
this
man,
is
I
This
must have
all
sent it to the
by
wrong
the
person.
unsolicited.
way, this is like literally in the middle of my workday.
That's funny.
I sent it to the wrong person. Shout out to Clarity Research in Santa Monica, California. Raul.
Yeah, they were one of our first
Yes.
clients back in the day, but they're
Yes.
still with us today, which is great. But yeah, I mean, and for those of you who don't know, these conversations, these are not like practice. We don't say, okay, this is what you're gonna. They're not scripted. This is off the cuff. Dan hits live, and we just start talking. So it's always interesting to see, where the conversation goes. So going with, with kind of the proof of concept that you had, and you can talk. uh, I don't know how much detail you can and cannot share, but um, you know, what coming to the actual campaign, honestly, did you think that it was going to work? Did you think that we were going to get to where you guys wanted to get to?
I Ronick, so no.
Okay,
No. Just because of I absolutely did not.
Has
And
a
what was
healthy
so
dose of skepticism.
yeah,
yeah,
Everyone is forced to have
yeah,
this.
I did not think it was right. And I'll let you lead the questions here because I don't want to go. I want to answer each question individually, but
sure.
no, I did not think it was going to
And
work.
is that just a function of your experience? Like, okay, all right, everyone says they can do it, but it's just I'll
I would
believe.
say I would say largely that was maybe 50% of my concern, but the other
Sure,
50% was just the indication in which I was working in with
sure,
that particular situation was, a little bit like, I don't even know if I would do it.
gotcha. Okay,
To be
yeah,
to be quite
fair enough.
honest with you. So there was a little bit of that as well.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
So both of those were definitely contributing factors to my skepticism.
Gotcha. Okay, fair enough. And yeah, I agree with you. Some of the procedures were like, I definitely wouldn't do this. I mean, I'm not the target market for for this study.
Right.
So it's a big ask.
There's people out there. I mean, we can save that one for another pod, but
Sure.
there's people out there that are really interested in what Robert and his team are up to.
So what was your timeline in terms of wanting to meet metrics? Like what was your like, okay, if we are able to enroll what we want to in X amount of time, then that's a good result. What was that expectation, or what was that kind of criteria for you?
Yeah, I think it was, somewhere between 4 and 8 weeks for this
Okay,
particular program.
sure,
And I figured I'm like, look, if we close this up in 8 weeks, that's great.
that's a good result.
If we go to 12, like, all right, it's still good.
Sure,
But anything past that 3 month period, I would be like, yeah, here we go again, right?
yeah. and
Let,
and I'll you've been transparent, and I'll kind of share my perspective as well. My thought was that I think we can knock this out pretty quickly. I don't remember what estimate I gave you at the time. I probably said a month, or a month or two, just
Mhm.
to I like to under promise over deliver.
Sure.
So we said, yeah, I think we can meet that. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. And what happened?
Well, I, I got some pressure from the top. They're like, hey, we're also a little bit skeptical here, and maybe
Yeah.
we should just like launch this campaign and let's see what happens. Let's just run it for 24 hours. Let's just see
Okay.
what happens.
Oh, so okay, so
Um,
interesting. So the proof of concept was really more of an internal proof of
yeah,
concept. Like, let's really see what this is about, like, so we know what to expect. It wasn't necessarily a, something that, yeah, that you had some endpoints or anything like that you had to, it wasn't for a protocol per se. It was an internal test, proof of
Well,
concept.
I mean, it was for a protocol, right? But it was
Right.
more, but it was also like uh, there was a lot of skepticism
Sure,
out
sure,
of my own skepticism,
sure.
and they were like, "Hey, we're hedging all of our bets over
Yeah,
here, and what if this doesn't work?" And I'm just like,
yeah,
"Listen, it's
and
gonna work."
that's
And so,
it's a
and I
big
was like,
risk.
the only way to remedy that is like, okay, I called you up, and I'm like, Ron, like, let's launch this thing. We had all the approvals in place.
Yeah,
Let's go ahead and launch this, and let's see what happens.
yeah.
And let me know when you want me to drop the bomb. I'm happy to tell the audience here.
Sure, go for it.
Like, I was calling Ronak within 24 hours, like, just turn it off. Like, we're done. We are oversubscribed. We are done. We literally enrolled the study in 24 hours,
Wow.
That's crazy.
and
I
we have
remember
the
when you were
metrics.
telling me that.
Yeah, it was mind blowing, and I think the other colleagues were also just like, wait, what? Like, are you serious? I mean, well, let's talk about 12 hours into this, you know? I was just like, this can't be. There's no way.
So you didn't even need
Um,
to rely on site database or anything like that.
no, zero, zero,
Yeah.
yeah, zero. Yeah,
Yeah, and
it was remarkable.
and to be fair, right? I'll add a few disclaimers. Number one, this is not typical. It's not going to happen every time.
Correct.
It's nice when it does. Number two, it was a small sample size, right? You,
That's
you
true.
weren't trying to enroll. You weren't trying to enroll 100,
No, no,
patients.
no.
N was, can you say what your target was, or?
Yeah, it was around 25 participants. So
Okay.
it was a small study, but still it was a very niche
Right. Right.
trial
But
that was
you
not
know how many
easy.
of these sponsors are wasting money with these big central recruitment vendors that are they're just getting like every trick in the book thrown at them, and they're
Mm.
paying
Yeah,
for it because they don't know other alternatives. So I think maybe that's a thesis for those small cap companies and maybe the
And
yep,
you
big
you
ones too.
guys you guys enrolled 25, the full 25 that you wanted?
full. Yep.
Okay. I actually thought it was less than that, but it's been a little bit. So
It's
I
The
want
almost
to
been a
say
response,
year,
yeah,
no?
yeah, it's been a while. So the
no, not a
response
year.
was
I mean, a
just,
couple months.
Okay.
yeah, well, yeah, something like maybe yeah, it's been about 4 months now.
Yeah.
But the response was, I was just like, this can't be like there. I was actually like, I was actually like, are these real people?
You
And
thought
then
I
we
was
and
It
then
like,
was me clicking and filling out the info
I
on the back
figured it was. I figured it was. I was like, this can't
that's
be.
funny.
And then we started like talking and conversing. It's like, wow. Yeah, it was wild.
And the other disclaimer I'll add is that, Robert, to your earlier point, you were doing really effective follow up. We had the systems in place and everything, but it doesn't work without follow up. So
That's
at the
right.
site level, and for this test, for the purposes of this test, you were the site, and so you were calling these leads, you were talking to them and communicating with them. And so that contributed a lot to that. So
Indeed.
I don't want to minimize that because follow up is everything. But we like to think that we provided the mechanism and the platform to be able to do that easily, effectively,
well
efficiently.
now
Um, Go ahead.
now Robert, when he he's a city director, so when he talks to sites, surely
Mm,
he's not going to be calling every lead in the future
right,
studies, but
right. Yeah,
when he talks to sites, he's going to say, listen,
I
I
did this.
did
Yeah,
your job. Like,
yeah.
how many study directors can actually say that?
And
Not
not
too
15
many.
years ago. I did your job like
I
this
did
year.
your job, like, yeah, recently, and we actually use the
Exactly.
same portal that we're using
Yeah,
again, and I know exactly what it takes to get these patients in. It's not fun. You have to be in a good headspace. You can't be having a bad day and talk to these people. Like,
No,
I know from personal experience myself, you got to put that shit aside and just
you
shout
absolutely
out to
do. You have
Fernanda.
to.
She does our patient ace now. I know she's watching on Instagram. What are you
Mm,
doing on Instagram, Fernanda? Back to Patient Ace.
that's funny.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
No,
So,
I mean, Ronak, I just want to
yeah.
like double down on what you just said because I think that's something that's really, really critical here. Yes, you did a lot of magic on your end, but to your point, you can't minimize the follow-up effort that is required to make
Mm,
the dream come alive, right? So again, it's that old adage, you can lead the horse to the water, you can't make him drink.
yeah.
Well, if you're not doing the drink and you're not, to Dan's point, in the right headspace to have these 15, 20, 30-minute conversations and really get this individual warmed up in the sense that I feel comfortable even talking to you about this. I don't even know who you are, as a matter of
Yep.
fact. It's really a finesse, and it's really like Dan. Honestly, I think in Ronick, this might be an idea. You might want to literally create some training courses and some
Mm,
collateral to how to do what we actually did so successfully. How do you really talk to these patients in the most effective way possible? And it's not
Yeah.
just, hey, how are you? I heard you signed up for this study. When can I bring you in for it? Like, no,
Yeah.
that's so not it, right? It's, hey, where you from? How's the
You got to
weather?
read the
Yeah,
room. You got to
you
read
gotta
the room.
really,
This
you
is
do,
like
Dan.
some people you go straight to the point.
That's
Other
right.
people you gotta. I always follow what they're giving me back. Like in a way, you got to be a chameleon
That's
mm,
and
right.
mimic like their vibe because people like people similar to themselves. So you got to be able to catch that. I'm not sure how Fernanda's doing it. We should have her on the show one of these days. But let her
Yeah,
get some more
guys,
yeah. I
look,
mean,
experience. Let her
it's an
get some
art
more.
in and of itself, and I think what you made an interesting point. I remember that in saying that it's worth it for a site to pay somebody well to do this because the return is just phenomenal.
oh man,
Like it's a no-brainer, right? But it's difficult to um, you know to actually want to take that step. So, hey, like let's get somebody on this, and rather than just, okay, let's put an intern on it, let's whatever, to minimize costs. It's not about minimizing costs, it's about maximizing effectiveness. And I think
there you go.
one of the things that we'll want to do is offer that as a service, as part of our service,
Mm.
in the future, to sponsors, where we'll handle it everything end to end, so that it makes it easier for the sites.
It makes it work. You know what I found? We're having, we actually, unlike Lee, we do put our newest people on it because our
Mm,
more experienced people are busy.
sure,
Monitor
sure.
wants this, sponsor wants that, someone like Robert wants this, PI wants to give you patients. The 80% of the issue is just responding to the leads.
Yep.
The
Mhm.
rest is like the extra 20%, how you're going to do it, what tactic you're going to use, how are you going to mirror them,
Sure.
how do you get to know quick, because some people will just tell you yes because they're nice, but they're never going to come in and
Right.
they just don't want to
Yeah.
hang up on you. So you don't want to waste time on those people either. But that's the
Mm,
20%. The 80% is just get your ass to the leads. Like just
yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
Even text. If you don't have time to call, just text them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
But also, I
Um,
think I think people want to hear that human touch, and I would always remind the participants, like, look, I'm not some AI agent. I'm a real
yeah.
person. You can contact me whenever you want. So I think Ronak, you're spot on. There is an art to getting the lead and then converting that lead into a screen, into an enrolled participant. And
Sure.
that intermediary is really, really, really important. And to your
Mm,
point, I cannot recommend sites should be investing heavily like Dan has. And whether it's an experienced person or not, you can train somebody to do this.
right.
Yeah.
It's not very difficult, but they also don't want to be so scripted that they don't know how to go off the script and actually
Mm.
be a human for a moment and
Yep.
empower
And
that
you know the
participant so
difference
they
between
understand.
where you were at as a sponsor using this versus a site, you actually had some restrictions sites don't. So if the patient says no, but I have this, you can't refer them somewhere else.
Mm,
If you're a site, you may have other studies. Like you actually want, it pays you more. There's a more ROI to listen as opposed to you. Like as a sponsor, you knew what you wanted. If they don't have that, that's it. with a site, well, we have all this, but we're doing this. Oh, well, we have that study actually. Let's talk
Mm,
about that. You need to be able to switch gears rapidly as well, which is something sponsors can't do because they're just doing it for one study.
yeah. Dan, I know you have a hard stop, so
Yeah.
we'll wrap up. Any last thoughts, Robert?
No, guys, look, I'm not good with platitudes. Everybody knows that, but
Rubber wants a refund.
no, absolutely not. I mean, you guys have made me a believer in Patient Ace. And it's not because I know Dan and Ronak, you and I became not only colleagues but friends also. Um, I'm give a Patient Ace a try. You will not be disappointed, but at the same time, the effort you put in is the output you're going to get out.
100%.
So, but in terms of the support, the structure, the tech, the way in which it's approached, I could not recommend it enough. And I'm not being paid to say that. And quite honestly, if I didn't like it, I would also say that it
Yeah,
wasn't great and I probably wouldn't be using it again. But that's not the case. It's actually an integral part of my delivery strategy moving forward for all projects that I'm working on. And that's
awesome,
Patient Ace. Yep.
awesome,
Yeah,
great.
Robert would have told me what's up. That was the added
Well,
pressure on
Dan, I
me.
would have because I had those phone calls. I'm like, Dan, if this goes sideways, I'm gonna be calling your
Well,
personal phone.
Robert gave me my first study in Yuma, like my first significant study here. We had
Mm,
other studies we made okay, but he gave me my first significant study where we actually ended up making six figures on it. I didn't want to let him down on that one because at
yeah,
that point he was like a follower of mine on YouTube, and I was like, okay, guys, we gotta really focus on this one because like we can't look bad in front of this dude. He's a guru nation. We can't let him down. Then with Patient Ace, Robert became a friend. So it's like, well, can't let a friend down. I mean, he's gonna think I'm full of shit if this thing doesn't work. I remember asking Ronick, I think we can do this, but like, we can't mess this one up, man.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm
And
glad it
and
went the
and they,
other way.
this
You
was a
guys,
this was a paid engagement, right? We didn't do this. We didn't give away a
no,
campaign
this was
in
for fully
exchange for
paid.
a pro.
Yeah,
It's
So
no,
almost harder, like more pressure when it's someone you know
yeah,
versus someone a stranger where you're like, well, fuck it. I mean, I don't give a shit.
no. Well,
But
we
it's
we
not like I can
regardless.
control it anyways. I don't do
Yeah,
anything on the insides of the central campaigns anyways. But I was
right.
just
yeah.
crossing
No,
my
we
fingers
take
like the
care of
shit will work.
all clients, big or small.
Hmm.
No, yep, absolutely. Guys,
Awesome.
I appreciate your time. Thank you
Appreciate
so
that.
much.
Thank you so
Everyone
much.
follow Robert. Everyone follow Ronick. Everyone go to patientace.com/demo. It's been growing, organically. So we appreciate the community for that. And thank you again, Robert, for being one of our case studies and an evangelist.
My pleasure, man.
See you all at SOS, saveoursites.com. Early bird ends in a few days. Get your tickets now. Stop playing around. Bye bye. Bye bye.